Chapter 12. How Not to Die from Suicidal Depression. Healthy food can have a powerful effect on mood. But don't only take my word for it, take Margaret's too. After hearing me speak at her church, she sent me this email. Dear Dr. Greger, I was diagnosed with clinical depression by a psychiatrist when I was 10 years old. I spent all my teenage years and 20s on a cocktail of medications for depression. Even on medications, I was still haunted by intrusive thoughts of suicide on a daily basis. Worse yet, the medications gave me headaches, nausea, and vivid, often frightening dreams. I was sleepy all the time, and despite the scary dreams, I had a nap every day. I slept a lot, a couple hours midday and then close to 10 hours every night. Even with these side effects, I was afraid not to take these medications because I really wanted to live, and I was scared that without meds I might get so depressed I would kill myself. Eventually, I got married and divorced. Was hospitalized several times during my marriage for depression. To be honest, I just never had any sex drive, and my husband took it personally. I guess I'll never know if my missing libido was just a side effect of all the medications I was on or the depression itself. About 9 years ago, I heard you speak at my church. I realized I had just spent the last 2 decades on a medication-induced haze, and without ever feeling good a single one of those days, I talked to my psychiatrist about how I wanted to completely overhaul my diet and try to back off on the medications under her supervision. Much to my surprise, she was supportive. Well, I've been whole food and plant-based for 9 years and haven't had a further relapse. Not that I haven't been sad from time to time, but I haven't had any more thoughts of suicide or any more hospitalizations. I sleep like a normal person now. Everyone tells me I'm a different person since I changed my diet. I just wanted to thank you. My fiancé would like to thank you too. I owe you my life. How can you prevent death by suicide? For those unfamiliar with the ravages of mental illness, the flippant answer is just don't do it. In fact, death from other leading killers such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and hypertension may be just as much a choice as death from suicide, since psychiatric disorders can cloud your judgment. Nearly 40,000 Americans take their lives each year, and depression appears to be a leading cause. Thankfully, lifestyle interventions can help repair your mind as well as your body. In 1946, the World Health Organization defined health as, quote, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. In other words, you can be in excellent physical shape, enjoying low cholesterol, a healthy body weight, and good overall physical fitness, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. Mental health can be just as important as physical health. Major depression is one of the most commonly diagnosed mental illnesses. An estimated 7% of American adults suffer from serious depression. That's about 16 million people who have had at least one depressive episode each year. Now, everyone feels sad occasionally. A full range of emotions is part of what makes us human. Depression, however, is not just sadness. It is characterized by weeks of such symptoms as lower sad mood, diminished interest in activities that used to be pleasurable, weight gain or loss, fatigue, inappropriate guilt, difficulty concentrating, and recurrent thoughts of death. Indeed, major depression can be a life-threatening ailment. Good mental health isn't, merely the absence of disease, though. Just because you're not depressed doesn't mean you're happy. There are 20 times more studies published on health and depression than there are on health and happiness. In recent years, however, the field of positive psychology has emerged, focusing on the relationship between optimal mental and physical health. Growing evidence indicates that positive psychological well-being is associated with reduced risk of physical illness. But which came first? Are people healthier because they're happy, or are people just happier because they're healthy? Prospective studies that follow individuals over time have found that people starting out happier do indeed end up healthier. An analysis of 70 such studies on mortality concluded that, quote, positive psychological well-being has a favorable effect on survival in both healthy and diseased populations. Those who are happier appear to live longer. Not so fast, though. While positive mental states may be associated with less stress and more resilience to infection, positive well-being might also be accompanied by a healthy lifestyle. In general, people who feel satisfied appear to smoke less, exercise more, and eat healthier. So, is being happier just a marker of good health and not a cause of it? To find out, researchers set out to make people sick. Scientists at Carnegie Mellon University took hundreds of individuals, some happy, some unhappy, and paid them $800 each to be allowed to drip the common cold virus into their noses. Even if someone with a cold sneezes right in your face and the virus gets into your nose, you won't get sick automatically because your immune system may be able to fight it off. So the study question was, whose immune system would be better at fighting off the common virus? Those in the group initially rated as happy, peppy, and relaxed, or those in the group who were anxious, hostile, and depressed. About 1 in 3 of the negative emotion individuals failed to successfully fight off the virus and came down with a cold. But only 1 in 5 of the happy individuals became sick, even after the researchers took into account such factors as subject sleep patterns, exercise habits, and stress level. In a subsequent study, the researchers even exposed subjects, who had also been paid, to the influenza virus, a much more serious infection. Once again, increased positive emotions were associated with decreased verified illness rates. Happier people, it seems, are less likely to get sick. So mental health does appear to play a part in physical health. That's why it's crucial that the food we eat support both your mind and your body. As you'll see, common foods, from leafy green vegetables to your basic garden variety tomato, may positively affect your brain chemistry and help ward off depression. In fact, even simply smelling a common spice may improve your emotional state. But avoiding the blues is not just about eating your greens. There are also components in certain foods that may increase the risk of depression, such as arachidonic acid, an inflammation-promoting compound found mostly in chicken and eggs in the diet that is blamed for potentially impairing mood by inflaming the brain. Arachidonic acid. Studies on the emotional health and mood states of those eating plant-based diets suggest that eating less meat isn't just good for us physically, it's good for us emotionally too. Researchers employed 2 psychological tests, the Profile of Mood States and the Depression and Anxiety Stress Scale. The first measures levels of depression, anger, hostility, fatigue, and confusion. The second gauges other negative mood states as well, including hopelessness, lack of interest, anhedonia, which is lack of pleasure, agitation, irritability, and impatience with other people. Subjects eating plant-based diets appear to experience significantly fewer negative emotions than omnivores. Those eating better also reported feeling more vigor. The researchers offered 2 explanations for their findings. First, people eating better diets may be happier because they're healthier. Those eating plant-based diets don't just have lower rates of many of the leading killer diseases, but also appear to have lower rates of such annoying ills as hemorrhoids, varicose veins, and ulcers, fewer surgeries, fewer hospitalizations, and only about half the odds of being on drugs, including tranquilizers, aspirin, insulin, blood pressure pills, pain medications, antacids, laxative sleeping pills. Being able to avoid doctor visits and health insurance hassles would make anyone less irritable, stressed, and depressed. The researchers also suggested a more direct explanation for their results. Maybe the pro-inflammatory component arachidonic acid found in animal products can, quote, adversely impact mental health via a cascade of neuroinflammation, unquote. The body metabolizes arachidonic acid into an array of inflammatory chemicals. In fact, that's how anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen work to relieve pain and swelling, by blocking the conversion of arachidonic acid into these inflammatory end products. Maybe the mental health of omnivores was being comparatively compromised by inflammation in their brains. Inflammation isn't always bad, of course. When the area around a splinter gets all red, hot, and swollen, it's a sign that the body is using arachidonic acid to mount an inflammatory response to help fight off infection. But your body already makes all the arachidonic acid you need from scratch, so you don't need to take in any more via your diet. In this way, arachidonic acid resembles cholesterol, another essential component that the body makes all on its own. When you add excess amounts through diet, it may upset your system's internal balance. In this particular case, the researchers suspected arachidonic acid intake might impair the body's emotional state. There are data suggesting that people with higher levels of arachidonic acid in their blood may end up at significantly higher risk of suicide and episodes of major depression. The top 5 sources of arachidonic acid in the American diet are chicken, eggs, beef, pork, and fish, although chicken and eggs alone contribute more than all the other top sources combined. Just a single egg's worth of arachidonic acid a day may significantly raise arachidonic acid levels in the blood. Overall, omnivores appear to consume about 9 times more arachidonic acid than those eating plant-based diets. The study showing improved moods and emotional states in those eating plant-based diets was a cross-sectional study, meaning it was a snapshot in time. What if people who start out mentally healthier go on to eat healthier too, and not the other way around? To show cause and effect, researchers would have to perform an interventional study, the gold standard of nutritional science. Gather subjects, change their diets, and see what happens. The same research team did just that. They took men and women who ate meat at least once a day and took away their eggs and chicken, along with other meats, to see what would happen to their moods. Within just 2 weeks, the study subjects experienced a significant improvement in measures of their mood states. The researchers concluded, perhaps eating less meat can help protect mood in omnivores, particularly important in those susceptible to affective disorders such as depression. Given these results, another research team decided to put a healthy diet to the test in a workplace setting, where healthy bodies and minds could potentially translate into improved productivity and elevate the mood of shareholders as well. A group of overweight and diabetic employees at a major insurance company was encouraged to follow a whole-food, plant-based diet, cutting out all meat, eggs, dairy, oil, and junk foods. There was no portion size restriction, no calorie counting, no carb tracking, and participants were explicitly told not to change their exercise habits. Meals were not provided, but the company cafeteria did start offering such daily options as bean burritos and lentil and minestrone soups. A control group of employees received no dietary advice. Despite the dietary restrictions, over the course of about 5 months, the plant-eating group reported greater diet satisfaction than the control group. How well did they do? The plant-based group experienced improved digestion, increased energy, better sleep, as well as significant improvements in their physical functioning, general health, vitality, and mental health. No surprise, then, that they showed measurable improvements in work productivity, too. Based on this success, a much larger study of plant-based nutrition was conducted at 10 corporate locations across the country, from San Diego, California, to Macon, Georgia. The same resounding success was reported, showing improvements not only in subjects' body weight, blood sugar levels, and ability to control cholesterol, but also in their emotional states, including depression, anxiety, fatigue, sense of well-being, and daily functioning. Fighting the blues with greens. Here's a statistic you probably haven't heard. Higher consumption of vegetables may cut the odds of developing depression by as much as 62%. A review in the journal Nutritional Neuroscience concluded that, in general, eating lots of fruits and vegetables may present a non-invasive, natural, and inexpensive therapeutic means to support a healthy brain. But how exactly? The traditional explanation of how depression works, known as the monoamine theory, proposes that the condition arises out of a chemical imbalance in the brain. The billions of nerves in your brain communicate with each other using chemicals called neurotransmitters. Your nerve cells don't physically touch one another. Instead, they manufacture and deploy neurotransmitters to bridge the gap between them. The levels of an important class of neurotransmitters called monoamines, which include serotonin and dopamine, are controlled by an enzyme called monoamine oxidase, known as MAO, that breaks down any excess monoamines. People who are depressed appear to have elevated levels of this enzyme in their brains. Thus, the theory goes, depression is caused by abnormally low levels of the monoamine neurotransmitters due to elevated levels of the neurotransmitter munching enzyme. Antidepressant medications were developed to try to boost the levels of neurotransmitters to offset their accelerated breakdown. But if the excess MAO is responsible for depression, why not just develop a drug that blocks this enzyme? Such drugs do exist, but they have serious risks, not the least of which is the dreaded cheese effect, in which eating certain foods, such as certain cheeses, cured meats, and fermented foods, while on the drug, can potentially cause fatal brain hemorrhaging. If only there was a way to tamp down the monoamine oxidase enzyme safely. Well, it turns out that many plant foods, including apples, berries, grapes, onions, and green tea, contain phytonutrients that appear to naturally inhibit the MAO, as do such spices as cloves, oregano, cinnamon, and nutmeg. This may explain why those eating plant-rich diets have lower rates of depression. Even on a day-to-day basis, studies have shown that the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the happier, calmer, and more energetic you may feel that day, and this positivity can spill over into the next day. For your diet to have a meaningful psychological impact, though, you may need to consume approximately 7 servings of fruits or 8 servings of vegetables each day. Seeds and serotonin. Although some plant foods contain significant amounts of serotonin, the so-called happiness hormone, serotonin can't cross the blood-brain barrier. This means that dietary sources of serotonin can't make it up into the brain, but the building block of serotonin, an amino acid called tryptophan, can get from your mouth to your blood to your brain. Tryptophan depletion experiments in the 1970s showed that people given specially concocted tryptophan-deficient diets suffered from irritability, anger, and depression. So if you give people extra tryptophan, will they feel better? Well, that's the theory. However, in the 1980s, certain tryptophan supplements created a debacle, causing a rash of deaths. But if tryptophan is an amino acid, and if proteins are made out of amino acids, why can't you just give people high-protein meals to boost their serotonin levels by delivering extra tryptophan to the brain? It's been tried, and it's failed, likely because other amino acids in protein-rich foods crowd out the tryptophan for access to the brain. However, carbohydrate ingestion does the opposite. It helps shunt many non-tryptophan amino acids out of the bloodstream and into the muscles, allowing